Thank you, Chairman, for holding this hearing and for your work and the full committee chairman's work on the digital market structure legislation. Both this committee and the House Ag Committee have had many hearings, many roundtables in the lead up to this draft. And this hearing gives us another opportunity to examine the underlying legislation and discuss why it's important for Congress to provide a clear regulatory framework. And I'll begin with this. If the United States wants to be a leader in the future of digital assets, it's essential that Congress act. Other jurisdictions, such as European Union and Japan, have frameworks for digital assets, and countries like the UK are crafting their own rules. At the same time, our regulators here in the U.S. are at odds. We have the chairman of the SEC telling Congress that legislation is not needed, while the chairman of the CFTC says legislation is needed. Congress should settle this by passing much-needed regulatory clarity for digital assets, not jurisdictions abroad like the EU and not the SEC through a chaotic enforcement approach. Mr. Garrison, could you discuss how it makes our job passing meaningful legislation more difficult the longer we wait?
So the longer that it takes time to get legislation together, the more the trading public in digital assets are put at risk, where there's no rules in place. The longer that industry participants don't have certainty, the more difficult it is for them to continue to operate, and the greater the risk that they move offshore.
Mr. Allaire, could you further underscore the missed opportunity of allowing other countries to create a workable digital asset environment while here in the United States we allow the SEC to take the lead?
Thank you for the question, Congressman Lucas. Very specifically, we are seeing governments around the world, the EU, the UK, Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore, and others, actually defining the rules for how digital dollars are issued and operate in those markets, which is astounding. The United States is responsible for the dollar, and the United States does not yet have clear regulation for payment stablecoins and digital dollar issuance. And so with respect to the different need for clarity, I think as recommended by Secretary Yellen and the entire President's working group, who've also led an effort internationally to establish stablecoin rules, we need to adopt stablecoin rules so that other markets are not actually regulating the dollar.
Many of the consumer protection concerns that we see today in the crypto market are reminiscent of the Forex markets of the 2000s, which were ripe with get-rich-quick schemes under an unclear regulatory framework. In 2008, granting the CFTC jurisdiction over leveraged spot retail Forex transactions provided tangible consumer protection results. Mr. Sexton, drawing upon your experience and tenure at the NFA, how important is it for Congress to act if we truly want to protect consumers?
Mr. Lucas, thank you for the question, and thank you for meeting with us yesterday. As a member of the Ag Committee, you worked with us on retail Forex issues, and it's extremely important in light of the similar type of retail customer fraud that occurs with regard to spot digital asset commodities, that a similar framework be built. We know that the CFTC has anti-fraud jurisdiction over these products currently. We need to complement that with regulatory jurisdiction as we did in the retail Forex space. As we've often said, it is far better to prevent fraud than prosecute fraud because retail customers have been hurt after that's occurred.
Mr. Sexton, of course, I understand you're still reviewing the implications of the market structure discussion draft, but could you discuss broadly how the National Futures Association would amend its compliance rules to account for Congress creating a classification for digital commodities? What would the process look like?
The process would be very similar to what we have done in the past when we have taken on additional responsibilities in the retail Forex and the swaps markets. The first thing that we would do is, as I said, we currently have a rule, anti-fraud rule for digital asset commodities that covers Bitcoin and Ether. Dependent upon what Congress derives as far as the definition for those products, we would amend our rules to cover those products. We also would amend our rules to permit digital asset commodity brokers and dealers to be members of an RFA, NFA, if we are participating in this. And then afterwards, we would adopt compliance rules in the areas that are identified in the discussion draft, working closely with the CFTC in doing so, from customer seg to capital disclosures. You go down the line as to the elements of the discussion draft.
Thank you for those insights. My time is about to expire, Mr. Chairman.